Hey, Transformers. Welcome back to Wine About Your Data. I'm so excited to bring you another episode, and I have my co-host here, Amanda Lopez. You want to give us a quick introduction?
Sure. I'm Amanda Lopez, president and founder at TCG. Excited to be here with you, Denae. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm Denae Green, and I've been here at TCG just for a few years, and I'm a project consultant, and I spent about 14 years in the nonprofit sector prior, and I love working with all you social organizations and causes out there. But let's go in. I mean, since I have the president and the founder of TCG right here on the podcast today, I mean, we should get to the interview, right? Because this is where the meat is and the fun. But first, I guess, before we get totally into this, the first thing we got to talk about is the wine that we're drinking.
That's right.
So what are we drinking?
Yes. So today I brought us a beautiful rosé. It's a dry rosé from Michigan, a Michigan winery, Hickory Creek. And Southwest Michigan is a beautiful region for whatever reason, with like Lake Michigan being there, and that they're able to do some really good growing of grapes. So there's your tip of the day. If you haven't visited Southwest Michigan, there's 30 plus or 40 wineries, distilleries, some really great places to go and visit.
You literally are full of just data knowledge. Who has that stat off the top of their head? Sorry. And then I was like thinking too, like you go up there to the lakes, like that's fun as a family.
Yes.
And you recently have been doing even more of that. And we even have 2 staff members that are up there.
I know, that are in Michigan as well. So yeah, we're definitely promoting where we're located, and the Midwest is beautiful. There's a lot to visit and enjoy here.
Yeah. So even though we're a firm that serves people nationally, we're based out of Indiana, but we have a lot of roots in our Michigan friends over here, and we're drinking your wine today. So once again, grab a glass of wine or your coffee or whatever your choice is, and get ready for a discussion around evaluation and the myths of it.
Yes.
So
should be good.
Should be good. All right, Amanda.
Debunking some myths today.
I mean, there's always that show like Mythbusters, which is kind of where the idea came from, believe it or not.
I like that even better.
Yeah, who doesn't love that show? Anyways, with that being up, maybe let's just start off with the very basic definition of evaluation. Like, make sure we're all on the same page with terms.
Absolutely. So evaluation is in the public sector. So if you're a nonprofit, a government agency, a public sector, an organization that's mission cause oriented, evaluations are really to assess your impact. What is the value, the good that you are bringing in your community? So if you're a nonprofit that is helping to tutor students, are we helping them improve academically, right? I mean, in just that kind of very basic way. So in the private sector, their version of evaluation is profit, right? The business is set up to make money. And in nonprofits, we do need to make money to do our work, but really our key metric is, what's the impact? Are we moving forward and accomplishing our mission? And that's what evaluation helps us understand.
All right. Well, so here we're getting ready to get into the meat about the myths. And now that we know what evaluation is, we hope that this episode will bring you more clarity and direction, and it will be one less thing you have to whine about.
That's right.
Haha. All right. I just love that little tag.
Yes. And hopefully you leave feeling more excited and confident about evaluation. I feel like there's a lot of feelings about evaluation.
Well, so tell me more. Like, it's like a dredge.
I think it's a dredge.
It's a dredge. We'll just say it.
I think it's a dredge. It's partly a dredge because, and we're going to get into some of this with the myths, so I don't want to go too far down this path. But for some, it feels like a lot of work.
Yep.
It's complicated. They don't always have, and we talked about this in an episode ago, the data knowledge and literacy. So it feels like a foreign language, or it's a process that we don't do as often, and it just feels like a lot of work. And people don't often see the value in it. And so I feel like that there's just a lot of feelings, not always good ones, when we come in to talk about it. But hopefully, after our time with Transform Consulting Group, our clients feel like, yes, they have converted to become data nerds.
Well, and today's about the myths and kind of debunking some of that. But really, we're moving into a series where we'll talk a lot more about evaluation in general. And, once again, I think just clarifying what it is, what it isn't, and putting real term and language around it. And I just think TCG does a good job of saying, like, it's about growth, it's about learning, it's about education. And we're just kind of taking out some of those negative feelings or some of the all data topics, including evaluation.
That's right.
But also maybe give us a little bit more insight into like really the purpose and the why behind evaluation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I alluded to earlier, what our differentiator is for the organizations in the public sector is you're there to do good in the community. And so evaluation really helps ensure that you are providing that value in your communities that you're serving. And it gives that purpose of we are making a difference. We are having an impact, both for your staff. It's great for affirmation to know, like, yes, my work and what I do matters, because most often you could probably go somewhere else and make more money, right? But you're here because, again, you believe in that mission. And so for staff, it's such a great sense of validation. Also, the purpose of evaluation helps inform where we're not doing so great, right?
Right.
And where we want to make improvement, because we don't always hit our targets. And so our goal, because again, as you said, data's for learning and continuous growth. And so we can use that data to hone in and refine our programs and services, make improvements so that we are getting closer and moving the needle to accomplishing our goals and outcomes. Data also an evaluation can be used for funding, right? And to grow our reach and serve more clients so that we can make even a greater difference and an impact. And so we can use it to tell our story to funders and donors who really want to support and invest in missions and also want to make a difference and know that they see a ROI, a return on impact.
Yeah, I mean, I love this topic because as a fundraiser, right?
Yeah.
And even marketer, these are the things, right?
Absolutely.
These are the metrics and the goal that we need in
Yes.
order to really communicate to folks why you should really partner and join us in what we're doing. And then obviously, like it is about impact, like are our programs doing well? And it is that like continuous quality improvement
Mhm.
side of things as well. But let's dive in and start demystifying
Yes.
evaluation is a big word, wasn't it? And really this like secret weapon that we have here with evaluation for nonprofits. So the first one on our myth here is more data is always better.
Oh, this is good.
It's not, is it?
No. And this is like, I feel like such a good win when we come in and we work with our clients and nonprofits, is we will do basically an audit, right? We got to know what are the tools and systems that you already have in place? What's all the data that you're collecting? And then help you figure out what is most important. Recently, I'm not going to say who, but one of our clients that a team is working with, they completed the audit and they found there were over 100 measures. So 100 metrics that this organization was focused on. And so it's too much, right? Like you can't do all of that well.
No.
And then all the different systems and tools and procedures, you're running in circles, like chasing chickens, right? Like it is craziness. So we often are refining. We're refining, we're refining, we're refining to really be clear about what it is that we're focused on so that we can be very thoughtful and intentional with our programming and our services. A lot of times what happens is there's similarities, right? And so maybe you apply for a grant or a project, and that funder might have some metrics that they want. And so we just add on. And then we add on. And sometimes I think the staff don't even know all the measures that they have and that they're tracking and that they're on the hook for and agree to, because it's not all organized. It goes back to the data informed organization that we talked about, clear metrics, data access, all of the things. So no, more is not better. And depending on the audience of who you're communicating this data with, if it's to funders, they don't want to see you're tracking 100 things. Like it's not about quantity. It's quality, right? And then also for your staff, they're stressed because they're trying to pull all these reports and
I thought you wanted this and I thought you wanted that.
Yes, it's impossible. And our clients too, we're sending out more forms and surveys and they're not happy. Nobody wants to do another survey or an assessment tool.
Well, I think that's an interesting take. I mean, I guess I was always looking at it from the organization standpoint, but like even the people you serve and work with, your customers, really, like you're right. Like they don't want to have to take all these
overburdening everybody in this process. Yeah. So no, like more data is not better. Less is more in this case.
Yeah. And I even have a little note here just from a lot of the trainings and talking with our data folks. They're like, it's the right data.
That's right. Yes. And that's really the process. We don't want you to just go in, and slice and dice here. We want you to be really thoughtful. And that's the idea here of that audit that we do, both with all the data indicators that an organization would have and the data tools. Another client of ours, when we did their audit, we found they had over 17 data tools and systems. And I think there were a few others. Some of them were paper pencil that they were still using,
Yeah.
and they were just as shocked as we were. I mean, they
Right.
didn't even know that they had this many tools and systems because, again, it wasn't organized, right? Different teams had just created this assessment or this survey. And so there wasn't this cohesive structure. So by going through this process of we kind of map out in the auditing, like what's the data tool? What's the purpose? Where does it track back to the indicators and our organizational goals? So
Right.
then there's clarity. And then if you can't fill out those fields, well, let's chuck it.
Those, yeah.
And then you can go even more deeply into your data tools and each survey or questionnaire. Some surveys could take like 30 minutes.
Right. And we don't want
Again,
that.
go back to your customers. They don't want to do that, right? And so you might realize you're only using 10 of those 30 questions for reporting and what's important in your organization. So we can also condense some of our assessment tools.
I love that. So once again, more data is not always better. So
Yeah.
myth number 2, data to satisfy funders.
Yes. So, the funder holds the purse, right? So
Yeah.
there is certainly a high bar there of like, we want to please the person that's, giving us money, our investors, our funders, our partners.
Yeah.
But that's not the only audience. And so oftentimes when we get into an organization and we are kind of looking under the hood at their data, most often they're just pulling that data together for a funding report, a grant report, an annual report. And so there's so many other ways and audiences that you should be sharing that data with. As I talked about earlier, share it with your staff. A
Right.
lot of times the staff don't even know progress that's being made. Like, let's celebrate. Yes, there is going to be good things happening and your work is making a difference. And so let's go back to our staff. If you have volunteers that help with your programming,
Right.
share your data with them and let them also know like the work that they're doing is great. And when it's not doing well, you're not hitting your targets, you can also talk about program improvements. Because a lot of times we'll just hear, oh, we're making this change, but there's no why.
There's no story
There's no
behind.
story, and the data isn't there to support that. And so if you were to say, oh, we're going to implement this new training or change this curriculum because we think it'll help us improve this outcome, this goal, then you got more buy-in.
Right. Well, and change is hard in general for
Right.
folks. So the more they understand that like back end story is always key for that too. So
Yeah. A few other key audiences of, who your data is for, not just your funders, is the public. You're a nonprofit doing good in the community. Does the public know that? Do they know the difference that you're making back to your marketing hat,
yeah.
right, Denae?
Right. Yep.
And, letting them know. And then also your clients, your customers. This could be a great way to get more individuals who you want to serve to come in if they know that what you're doing is helping others like them.
Yeah. Then they'll want to join and be a part of that.
That's right.
Yep. Which is obviously marketing and
Yes.
fundraising.
Yes.
Key goals there on that one. Okay. Myth number 3. Oh, this is a good one. If data reveals what we are doing is not working,
Yes.
will it harm me, my team, or our funding?
Right.
So
Yeah,
this is a key one.
This is really important because for some organizations and sectors, like it's very high performance based, right? And, in some ways data is important and it does help tell part of the story, but it's not the only part, right? And so we like to say the data is for learning and it is for growth. And we don't want to weaponize our data and use it, to penalize or be punitive with staff if we have this culture. And so, unfortunately, sometimes that's not in that environment because there is sometimes a lot riding on our data, right? It can determine getting a grant if we're behind or not hitting our metrics. It could impact funding and staff positions. So, some organizations feel that pressure. So, we talked about this in a previous episode with our leadership buy-in, and so as leaders, really cultivating a culture that is safe for your staff and team so that when data does come out and maybe the results aren't what you wanted, instead of pointing fingers or causing blame on others, let's have a conversation about what happened, what's going on here, and what could we do differently to improve with our data.
Yeah. And I think this also goes back to just some of our other things that we talk to people about of just like building that relationship with your funders, like really having an ongoing relationship. It isn't just transactional money anymore.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously you want high performance and you want to make an impact and that data, we want the data to prove that. But if you have a really solid relationship with the funder and these conversations, even though they may be hard, they will go a lot better for you.
That's
So,
such a great point, Denae. I'm so glad that you made that point because we actually have a couple of examples where that actually happened, and the nonprofit was really nervous because again, they feel they internalize this pressure. And often the funder isn't putting that pressure on
mhm,
them. They want to have a partnership with you because a lot of times the funder sees their nonprofits, their grantees as a partner, a vehicle to fulfill their mission
right,
and supporting the community. And so we worked with a client, thinking of one an example that where they weren't hitting their targets. And so we helped them kind of craft the story to say, looked at this, we have an impact team with another client, and here's what we're doing to improve. We made some changes to our data system process.
right,
We're making some changes to our programming. And also, here's the support we need so that we can make the changes. So we're being transparent. We're explaining what our data is, but we're not just stopping there and
right,
we're not satisfied with this. And here's the changes that we want to make. And here's how you could help us.
right.
And then that funder was like, yes, I want to help build your capacity because I believe in you and believe in your mission. And so I'm not going to turn my back on you
No.
because we're a partner. And so then they provided that funding support for that client to continue to make the improvements needed. And now they're doing exceptionally well. They have such great data to tell their story of impact.
Yeah, and that really, once again, that just that trust and that relationship, and then that data really created that whole conversation. So once again, even if your data isn't exactly telling the story that you hope,
Right.
there is a way through that
Right.
and have those conversations. So,
That's just
um,
as important.
yep. So make sure you do it. All right, number 4, myth number 4: we don't have time to mess with data.
That is so true. I know that you
I
can
know,
relate to this,
I do.
especially all your, practitioner field experience. I mean, nonprofits especially are often understaffed,
Yep.
right? And under-resourced. And so again, kind of back to where we started, data can feel like a burden and evaluation can feel like a burden. And so it just becomes this compliance thing
Hmm.
of I'm only going to do it when I have to do it because I don't have time. So we kind of like to turn that around and, really make sure that we're integrating this into our system. So if you are, like that one organization that has 100 measures, right, that's a lot of time you probably don't have to do that. And you're chasing down 17 different data tools to pull a summary report. That's a lot.
Right.
So what you need to do, as what we talked about, is implement our process and our steps, and go ahead and scale it back to just having those key metrics that are most important to you, having the right tools and systems, the staff who know it, and then the time doesn't take so long. And then as this becomes part of your regular process, when you have data in, pull it out, start to analyze it, start to summarize it, so you're not waiting until the end.
I love that. And I do think, once again, it really is from that practitioner lens, like when you got real clarity around what you're pulling, it makes things a lot easier and the time then is reduced. And so,
Right.
at least we hope, that's the goal, right? Okay. Well, myth number 5, we're going to keep going here. Data and metrics are not a crucial part of what I do.
Yes. Oh,
Oh, does that hurt your heart?
it does. I've heard it before, and you see it in the face when you show up there. And so that goes back to, we talked about in another episode of having everybody get a training, having a
Hmm.
universal training at an organization, not just program staff, not just leadership. Everybody understands, what the goals are, what we're all focused on, how each role, or department, and team supports and aligns to supporting those goals. So the more you can make it clear for each team member, each department, that they do have a part in this, everybody shares a responsibility.
Yep.
And then that you're sharing it back with them so they do see how their role shows up
Mhm.
in supporting those outcomes, those annual report numbers, then you'll start to see the change happen.
Yeah, and it just, continues to go back to that engagement of
Right.
staff too. Like it
Hmm.
just rolls right into that. It really brings that value and helps them understand, really what it is that they're doing and how they're impacting people.
Absolutely.
So I love that. All right. This is our last and final myth that we
Okay.
have. I'm sure there's more, and
Oh,
I'm
I'm
sure you
sure.
could give us more, but this is the last one for today in this episode. Data represents numbers.
Yes. So I think we hear that a lot. Like some organizations think, I don't have quantifiable data, so I can't do an evaluation. And that's not the case. A lot of the data that you might have might be qualitative, meaning words,
Yep.
and not be quantitative in numbers. And so again, use what you have. Start where you're at. And there's some really great tools and methods out there that you could use to still analyze your qualitative data. You can still pull out themes And then also potentially work with, a partner or other team members to think about how could we start to move towards having quantitative data as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Amanda, for kind of debunking all of these myths with
Yes.
me. And I chuckled throughout most of them just because I feel like I may have said them at a time or two, or have at least spelt them,
Yeah.
whether I said it out loud or not. I'm like, I don't have time to mess with that.
Right.
Or why does that number matter to me? Or why am I doing this? Right. So I just love that, like bringing that context to it and putting more, context to all of these myths. But what's one thing that you want them to take away?
Well, I hope that everybody walks away thinking evaluation is something I can do, that there is value in it. It's important. I don't have to have the pretty reports and all the systems, but we can start where we are at.
Yeah, and I love that too, because I think one of the special things, and I'll toot our own horn because I can, because it's TCG, but we'll meet you where you're at.
That's right.
I think that's one of the things I love about what TCG does, and when we walk alongside our clients and our partners that we work with every day, is some of you may be ready for those bigger systems or fancier reports, or you may have capacity to do that, and some of you may not. Some of you have full data teams. Some of you are literally positioning it out, and you're all in it together. So we'll meet you where you're at, and we can all do evaluation and start is the key.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Amanda, for joining me on this podcast. And thank you to all of our transformers out there who are doing great work. As always, you can find more information in our show notes. Please subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media. And I guess in the meantime, cheers to you, Amanda.
Yeah. So Denae, thank you for demystifying evaluation.
I know. And cheers to all of our friends out there and the important work that you're doing.